this is Claire, and today I'll be covering a project analysis on Amberhouse. At this point of the filming, actually the prices have already been out and they're launching, Far East is launching a 12 plus 3% discount at this point, I think for this weekend, but they may adjust the price later. At the same time, they have also not released some of the units above on the higher stacks, on the higher floors, I mean for all the stacks. So later I will show some prices as well, but just to caveat that they may be subject to change, and also they may kind of like pause the sale as well, we're not too sure. So maybe a bit of background on Amberhouse for a start before we zoom in on the questions that we want to answer over here in this video. So Amberhouse was actually en bloc from Amber Glades. They actually launched 2023, if I'm not wrong, called Amber C, but then after the first year of launch they kind of pulled it back and they stopped the sale, right? So then I think they continue renting Amber Glades, because I had one client staying there for a while, continue renting out, and then right now they're ready for launch. At the same time, one thing to note is that floor plans and all that were a bit later. This is actually a harmonized project. Okay, so a few questions we want to answer here at Amberhouse, right? So I think if we talk about address, is one of the most coveted address in the D15 area, right? A lot of people want to stay in Amber area. There is MRT right now, is it already operating? It's close to the beach, it's also close to the city. So I think in terms of Tanah Katong, that whole stretch along the Amber Road and Amber Gardens area is actually quite coveted. But from the point of view of understanding the differences in all the developments in the area, I think that's something we want to zoom in on today. Primarily, we want to understand for bigger units over there, the One Amber, the Esta, the Sea View, right? Amber Park, those are the bigger 400 to 600 units over there, versus the other small boutique ones. How do they perform overall, right? But there will be people coming in to buy Amberhouse from a point of view where it's purely just for own stay, right? Which is perfectly fine. In terms of price point, right now when we're looking at the launch price, I think it's quite attractive in a sense, and later I'll explain to you why. But one thing to note, if you want to make the best out of the investment, maybe there's something to consider first, and there may be other options in the market to look at. But let's get started. I'll share a bit more as we go along. Okay, so I'll cover the location, fact sheet, unit mix, site plan. More importantly, I want to be able to zoom in on bigger projects versus smaller projects. So what's the performance in the Amber area? And the other question I want to answer is, why do big freehold lands actually perform better? Okay, and then some conclusions at the end for you to sum up everything. Okay, so in terms of location, like I mentioned, it's quite one of the most coveted addresses you can find in the D15 area. A lot of people are kind of situated around the Amber Gardens and the Amber Road area. You're also right beside Chinese Swimming Club. You're also in between two MRT stations. Of course, Tanah Katong is the nearest one. Over here, you have Parkway Parade Mall, you have I-12 Katong B Mall, which has all the amenities, and then also you're kind of situated around all the hipster cafes and all that. So looking at East Coast, actually this is quite a good place to live in, because it's one near MRT, near Park Connector to go to the beach, near a mall, and near some cafes, and also it's 1 km from Tanah Katong Primary School. So in terms of location, I think it's great. Even as compared to the Mayor area, I think the Amber area is actually quite more sought after looking at rental yield as well. Okay, so it's 1 to 2 km from Haig Girls and Kong Hwa. At this point in time, it's only 1 km from Tanah Katong Primary, which is quite a decent school in my opinion. So looking at our fact sheet, this is a harmonized project. It's by Far East organization. So Far East, right, they also have a pattern and a style to how they do things, right? One is they would release a stack of units at different floors, right? And then after that, then if the sale is very good, then tomorrow they release another floor, right? Then they let you ballot for it, and tomorrow they release another floor, right? So that's what happened in reserve residences. Because the sale was too good, they started releasing floor by floor, day by day, and then the units, then we go for betting process, the units get sold out very quickly, right? So this is kind of riding on the demand for them and riding on the fact that they can increase the price anytime as well, right? So today, right now, they're taking a bit more conservative approach, understanding the climate as well. So they have a 12 plus 3% discount at the moment, total 15%. And if you look at the per square foot later, I'll show you it's actually quite reasonable. But of course, once you look at this video, the prices might have changed. There'll be units sold over the weekend as well. So you can actually reach out to me if you want to get an updated list of elevation chart of the units available and what's the pricing and what's the price increase since then. Okay, so this is called Amberhouse, right? Free by Far East organization, is a freehold development. There's only one block, right? The good thing is there is 1-to-1 car park. So 105 units, there are 105 car parks. There's also come EV charger lots, right? So when they say 2 active and 4 passive, is they will definitely have 2, right? I think the 4 they'll try to make sure that there's provision for it. TOP is December 2029, quite a small development. So yeah, maybe the estimated TOP is Q1 2026. Okay, and it's 16 stories high. Okay, overall the unit, we have 2 bedroom, 2 plus study, different facing, right? The compact 3 bedrooms, bigger 3 bedroom, 1 plus study, 1 is premium with a private lift. And then lastly, the 4-bedroom, which is the above 5 million kind of quantum already. Okay, so we talk about maintenance for smaller units, about 100 plus units, or even the 40 to 100 plus units kind of development, the maintenance is actually quite high. So in this case, excluding GST, estimated for the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms compact, you're looking at about $500 per month. Okay, so it's 16 stories high. There is, so if you look at the site plan, right, there is a compact 3-bedroom facing Amber Gardens. There is a bigger 3-bedroom over here, but not privately, facing Amber Gardens as well. Later I'll show you the distance so you can understand like what's the setback like. There is biggest 5-bedroom over here. There is a bit of sea view over here, right? The smallest 2-bed 2-bath over here, and the one with the private lift over here. Okay, so this is where your south is, right? And this is where the sea is, but then there is also a residence over here that will kind of block out the view, right? So I'll show you here in a minute. In terms of facilities, right, they have all the way at the top, there's a 35-meter pool here over here. General, I think in terms of looking at a lap pool for you to swim, a fitness corner, I think they have it. So nothing much to complain about here, but of course they can't fit in the tennis court and a full-fledged kind of facilities area over here. Okay, so if you look at the ones that this is down south, Amber Residence is here. The setback is actually quite close, right, at 16 meters, so you can actually see the units on the Amber side. But in this case, from the 5-bedroom, actually you can see a little bit of sea view because you're looking towards a bit of a low rise. Okay, and then for this one facing the road, Amber Gardens, this is quite a heavy traffic road, but generally it's because it's one lane, it's not so noisy. And then this one faces the Esta, which has a little bit more setback at 25 meters. Okay, so if you want to orientate yourself a little bit, this is where the roundabout is, right? Once you come in here, then you turn to Amber Gardens, and then you can go to the express for ECP from here. So a lot of people take this route to go to ECP, Changi, or the city. Okay, so why I want to cover this a little bit more, and I'll flesh this out later in the next slide as well. I want to understand a little bit more on the unit landscape in this area and how they perform because of the size. Okay, so we have one Amber 500 plus unit. We have the Esta over here. We have Amber Park that just recently TOP and started selling on the resale market. There's also the sea view here. Okay, so these are all the 500, 400 decent size full-fledged facilities, tennis court and everything in that land, right? But at the same time, Amber Gardens and Amber Road has also made up of smaller developments like this, right? 28 units, 144 units, 92 units, right? So, and where we are at Amberhouse, right, we are looking at about 105 units. Okay, so just to keep this in mind as we go along, and then later I'll come back to this again. Okay, so unit type analysis based on these estimates, right, we already have the prices for the current launch pricing. So low floor you can get something about 3,000 per square foot, and high floor at roughly about 3,001 per square foot at this point. So you can see that actually their per floor jump is not high at the moment, but they will be able to spread it out after the launch, and the pricing might be a bit different by then. Okay, so covering the floor plans are not that much. There's only one 2-bedroom stack, two plus study stack, one 3-bedroom compact stack, one 3-bedroom plus study stack, one 3-bedroom premium with a private lift, and also the 5-bedroom that's biggest and going at about above 5 mil. Okay, so the 2-bed 2-bath here, we're looking at 365 square feet facing Amber Gardens. So this is the one with the 16 meter setback. Okay, and they're going for about 1.9 to 1. Maybe 2 mil, right? So this is a fully almost enclosable kitchen, like dumbbell concept, and 2.9 living dining area, pretty decent. I think for own stay or for investment, it should fit a young couple's needs or a single person's needs quite well. Okay, then we come to the 2 plus study. The 2 plus study has different sizes. One is a 732, one is a 753 square feet, right? There are quite a lot of difference here. One is that this is 2.7 meters for the smaller 2-bedroom. The bigger 2-bedroom actually has a dedicated dining area and a 3-meter living dining area. So for 3-meter living dining area is very typical in 3-bedrooms nowadays for new launches, but for you to come in and get something that is 3 meters, actually it can be quite welcoming for a 2-bedroom. But in exchange for that, you get a slightly open concept kitchen, slightly smaller than the smaller one, right? So it's quite smart in how they kind of lay out like that, because one is same facing, right, but there is a bit of compromise here and there. So for a bigger living dining area, you get an open concept kitchen, slightly open concept, smaller kitchen, but still usable and functional. And the other one that's smaller in size, smaller living dining area, and the kitchen is slightly kind of tucked over and it's bigger to work with, right? So it really depends on preference. Both are facing the Esta, so you got a 25 meter setback. In terms of pricing, we're looking at about right now at about 2.16 to 2.27 meters. Sorry, 2.16 to 2.27 million in terms of pricing. Okay, so we look at price acceptance in the area, right? If you look at the pricing here that has already been launched at the 15% discount, 2.16 to 2.27 for the 2 plus study, study. If you look at the pricing, right, for 2 plus study, the 2 bedrooms and the 2 plus study, actually they are up to 3017 per square foot as of now, right? In terms of the price, the launch price today, right? Well, we look at the price acceptance in the area, right? Actually at Mayor Blue, which is a recent launch, right? The low floor actually already transacted at 30 something, and the high floor actually transacted at almost 3005 per square foot, right? So if I buffer that, right, I minus 200 PSF for a sea view, right? I enter at a better location in my opinion at 2003 per square foot. I think it's quite reasonable from looking at a new development point of view, with something that is almost the same size, better amenities, closer to the MRT, walkable distance, and also you get a more vibe beside. So I think in terms of looking at this for future buyers, whether I look at Mayor Blue or I'm looking at Amberhouse, I think from looking at amenities and all that, I would choose Amberhouse as well. Of course, Mayor is kind of catered to people who are a bit more private, a little quieter, because not a lot of people drive around the area. If you drive the area, that means you live there. But if you drive along Amber, you got Parkway Parade and all that, there's a bit more bus and a bit more traffic. So there's something that's kind of compromised, right? If you like the quiet, then yes, you'll be willing to pay a bit more for Mayor Blue, but if not, from a price point perspective, actually at 3000 per square foot, actually seems quite reasonable at this point. Okay, this is a compact 3 bedroom, starting from 2.88 million onwards at 2009 per square foot. Let's assume 2009.50 per square foot. Okay, what I like about this is the kitchen is actually quite sizable, it's quite long, right? The master bedroom is actually quite decent size as well. What I do not like is shorter living dining area. For 3 bedrooms, maybe at this point for new launches, I would expect a 2.9 to 3 meter living dining area. So this might be quite cramped. At the same time, what I do not like as well is this L-shaped area that is quite unusable. You can't really use much of that space. You can maybe put a shoe right here, but that will compromise a little bit of the working space, but you can't do much over here. One thing that I also wanted to point out is that there's actually a window over here, so that brings in the light to the kitchen, there's one to the dining area, and not needing the balcony area, right? So if you want some privacy, you can shut this off, right? But you still get light from this coming in from this area. So in terms of light, I think it does not really compromise that much. I think it's still quite a usable 3 bedrooms compact. Okay, then we come to the 3 bedrooms plus study, right? So this one comes with a study here over here at 4.1. It's a decent space, and you can also potentially hack it down and make it into a bigger walk-in wardrobe if you want to, right? Kitchen, household shelter, I think it's functional, it's quite usable. This space is not that wasted as well. You can actually put something over here, you can actually put something over here as well. Okay, there's a wide living dining area, 5 meters length. You can put the living dining area here, it's very comfortable, and there's also a good kind of setback here, 25 meters from there. Okay, this one for 3 bedrooms, 1216 square feet, they actually have a 20 square meters master bedroom. If you look at the 1238 square feet, actually the master bedroom is slightly smaller, including the walk-in wardrobe as well. So you can imagine that the master bedroom for this one will be much bigger, because they also have this walk-in wardrobe function. So here I think the space for you to put king size bed, the side table, vanity table, and maybe a massage chair still quite possible. Okay, this one comes with a wide living dining area as well for the private lift one. So this one is 1238 square feet, comes with a private lift and a foyer. You want to come in, this is a show flat type, so when you come to the show flat, you can actually see this particular layout, right? There is a master bathroom over here on the side. There's a dry kitchen, back kitchen, all the way to the yard and the back door, right? So this is good for terms of functionality for the helper. What you can do is, if you want the helper to have a room, hack down this wall, cut off this, and then this can be the room for her, and then she can access the WC and the yard area easily. Okay, and then there's a 3 bedrooms over here. Okay, and this one is starting from 3.655 mil. Okay, the price jump for a 3 bedroom, assuming the same floor, right, for between the 1216 square feet and the 1238 square feet is the 1216 square feet one has a bigger master, the 1238 square feet has a private lift and study, right? So if I assume the same starting price of 3.5 versus 3.5, PSF is maybe a bit more different in terms of about 100 per square foot difference, but that's because of the private lift. It's additional 150k for 22 square feet of space, right? So if you convert that in terms of per square foot, is way higher than this kind of average per square foot that you're paying for, right? So would I think that from an investment point of view, it might be worth to go for the private lift? Short answer is no, but there will be people in the D15 area that really needs that kind of luxury and wants the private lift feel and be willing to pay a little bit more for this, right? So for 150k, actually, for people looking at this kind of premium, right, it may not make much of a difference. So I think the developers have priced it quite strategically, where you get that price gap, yes, but at the same time, on paper it doesn't seem worth, because it's only 22 square feet more space, and that includes your private lift foyer as well. But from an emotional point of view, I think there will still be people going for the 1238 square feet. Okay, then we come to the 4 bedrooms at 1744 square feet. This is coming in at 5 million onwards, so 5.088 million at this point. right? What we want to understand for bigger units over here when you look into coming in, previously before 2023, what we're seeing is foreigner demand is quite strong, and because this foreign demand, they are coming in, they cannot buy landed because only Singaporeans and some pre-Rs can buy, right? They will still enter into this kind of thing because they have the cash. But today, foreign demand has gone down quite a lot because right now they're slapped with 60% ABSD to be able to buy a unit in Singapore, right? So foreigners are going into commercial shop houses in order to put their money in, and that's where you see commercial shop house prices also have gone up. So coming in at this 4 bedrooms, 1744 square feet, and looking to just purely for Singaporeans to buy, when they have the option to buy a landed, right, at this kind of pricing, there is a lower chance, right? So if I compare a decent landed in D15 versus a semi-D in D15, right, versus 4 bedroom here at 5 million coming in at 1744 square feet, price gap is still quite wide. That means it's almost like 3 million kind of, easily about 2 million for me to buy a decent semi-D renovated at 6 to 7 mil. It's still a bit of a 1 mil, 2 mil kind of gap, right? So it's still quite big. But if I'm looking at like just inter-terrace, for example, right, I can be able to get it as something, a 1 story at about 4-ish mil, right? Then this doesn't make sense at all, right? I'd rather buy my own piece of land and own it and then coming into here, right? So for today's climate where foreigner demand is not so strong, I think for this one it'll be harder to move because the price point is just a bit higher, and I'm may opt to choose to buy a landed as a Singaporean, versus if I have more foreigners coming in, then yes, this one will likely move. Okay, so these are the prices for freehold in D15 at this point of time, right? What we're looking at is that Male Blue has already hit 3,002 per square foot, right? And then we see the Amber Park that launched about 2,005 per square foot today, transacting about 2,009. Continuum launched around 2,007 per square foot today, selling at about 2,009 as well, right? So coming in 2,009 to 3,000, I think for Mayhouse House is still quite reasonable from a price point perspective comparing to all the freehold properties in D15. Okay, then the price cap for 99 years properties in D15, right? If you look at 3 new ones that have just launched, actually Emerald of Katong, the highest transacted was 2,983 already for 99 years. Same for Grand Diamond. It's already hit 2,985 per square foot, right? So on average, even though it's about 2,926 per square foot, right, this has already been accepted, this kind of pricing in D15 for 99 years. So coming in at 3,000 per square foot for freehold, I think is quite worth it. Okay, so these are the prices that I mentioned I'll share. This is as of yesterday on the first launch day, right? So there are some VVIP units that have already been VVIP that have already bought this unit over here, right? So this one's for highest floor possible for private live, right? And we are seeing the per square foot at about 2,009 here, all the way up to the high 3,000s, right? They may increase the units, the price over here, and at the same time, they haven't released the units over here from the 12th floor to 16th floor. They will likely release it slowly as well. Okay, if we talk about a 3-bedroom compact, I feel that the price point at 3 million plus here, over here, the promo price is actually quite high in that sense. So I think most of the demand coming in here will be towards 1,216 and the 1,238 square feet, because looking at the price point actually for this kind of sizing to 3.6 million is still quite reasonable in today's market. Because if you go to Continuum, same thing, the 4 bedrooms there around the same size as already transacted at this kind of pricing. So there is price acceptance in the area, and I think for Faiz, they have already kind of priced it quite competitively. I think they kind of understand where the demand is coming from, and in today's market, the bigger units will not move that quickly at this moment, right? So they're kind of betting on the 2 bedrooms and bigger 3 bedrooms. Okay, so if you want to know the latest pricing, you can feel free to WhatsApp me directly. Later I'll share my number and my WhatsApp QR code as well if you want to know the updated pricing and what has been sold, because there have been units that will be selling this weekend as well. Okay, so back to this overall unit landscape in this area, right? We want to zoom in a little bit on this. Earlier just now I mentioned that the bigger units here at One Amber, the Esta, Amber Park, the Sea View, and versus the smaller units, how do they actually perform? Okay, so I'll zoom in right straight into it. Bigger projects, you see that the performance for longer term wise, right, you see that there's 80 for One Amber, Esta, the Sea View, 87% to 98%. So over the past 15 years, you see that actually the prices have doubled. Okay, Amber Park launched in during the COVID period, right? It's gone up over 20% for now. But I think at this kind of price point and in future, in the next 10 to 20 years kind of horizon, it should see it double as well. Okay, but for smaller projects in the exact same area, right? So we have the Cape Amber Residences right opposite Amber Sky Coastline, right? You see that the growth is actually a bit fluctuating, right? There isn't why we need something of a bigger project, right? The simple answer is this. is once we have the transactions going, right, the more units selling, there's more demand coming in to look at the unit, there's more room for the prices to go up, right? But if there's only one transaction in a year, it's very hard to determine what's the future per square foot to sell at. And if there's only one or two transactions a year, it's very hard to determine the per square foot, even though the area has that kind of gauge. But for bigger units, it's easier to gauge that in that sense. What's the latest one that was transacted last month? What's the pricing like? What's the floor level, right? It's easier to have that kind of reference. I actually have a client staying at one of the boutique projects in D15, right? And because there's no transaction over the past 4 years, the valuation that came up was about 200k lower than what has been transacted in that area for boutique projects as well. So for example, today the owner bought it at 1.4 million, right? I want to sell it at 1.65 million. The valuation that came back is at 1.45 million. Even though there are other areas in the boutique projects that have already transacted at maybe 1.5, 1.6 million. But the problem is this: if the valuation and the bank valuation can only match up to 1.45 million, then I need to be able to top up 150k cash over valuation to be able to buy this unit at 1.6 million, right? So that is the problem when you come to looking at smaller projects, especially those 40 units one, where there isn't any transactions in area, and for that particular project there hasn't been any transaction for the past 4 years, right? So it's hard to determine, especially when the prices have gone up so much, but yet the valuation is still lower. Okay, so for these projects, yes, there is still growth. We're in a very good location, but in terms of transaction volumes and all, I think where we are at is you see that it's fluctuating a little bit because it's very hard to determine what's the next price to sell at. Okay, but from a price point perspective, you look at Amberhouse at 2009 per square foot to 3000 per square foot. I think for freehold development in that kind of good location is still very, very reasonable, and it's still quite attractive. Because if you look at Bayshore Road, right, which is about 4 stops away from Tanjong Katong, Singhai actually bidded the land at 1388 PPR per PSF per plot ratio, right? So in that case, right, taking into account the top bid of this price, right, the future development could start selling at 2007, average to above 2008 per square foot. And this is 9 years that will be launching in the next maybe 1.5 or 1 to 1.5 years, right? If you talk about that, and then selling, if they have confidence to sell at 2007 to 2008 per square foot, then it makes 2009 a freehold development closer to the city at Tanjong Katong in a very sought after location actually quite cheap, right? So I think Faiz is taking a more conservative approach in this sense, also because they bought the land cheap, they unblocked the land way back, and they have enough profit margin to play with, and that's why entering at the first phase will be the best for you, because you know that the entry level price is the lowest. And knowing also how East Coast properties have performed over the years, we know that actually the per square foot is just going to go higher and higher, okay? Especially when 9 years properties have already hit 2009 per square foot. Okay, but one thing to note, right, is that you realize that actually for big freehold land like One Amber, the Esta, the Seaview, they are actually very, very rare. Right, so one is City Square Residences, 910 units. This is beside Farrer Park MRT. 2 Signature Park at Bukit Timah, Upper Bukit Timah, Jalan Jurong Kechil, 928 units, and the transaction volumes are very healthy, and it's also 1 km from Pei Hwa. That's why there are more people coming to look at it. And third is Continuum, 816 units. Okay, so why big freehold land? Like I mentioned earlier, people enjoy the facilities. We know that their transaction volumes moving the prices up. If there's no transaction over the past 1 to 2 years or even 4 years, right, like my client that I mentioned before that, it's very hard to determine what's the price that they want to sell at, right? So okay, so this one is one example for City Square Residences versus Cityscape at Farrer Park just close by. Entry, the size is about the same, right? Just that the price is slightly different. Okay, so let's take a look at City Square Residences versus Cityscape at Farrer Park just nearby, right? Same entry level. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. City Square Residences, same entry timing 2017, right? Almost the same exit as well, right? Same size, but the profit margin and the profit difference is this much, right? It boils down to back to the same point where if there are very little transactions in the area for a small project, it's very hard to determine the pricing and the per square foot of what the price I want to sell. Okay, so that's one example. If I come to the D15 area, the Sea View, which is what I mentioned earlier, 546 units versus Suites at Amber, 28 units, roughly the same entry timing, right? Exit at about the same time, 6 months difference, right? The profit is easily about 800 plus K, right? So we can expect that, like what I mentioned earlier just now, when One Amber, the Esta, the Seaview, they have almost seen double profits in the value of the property doubled over the past 15 years. But for smaller projects, it may be a bit hard for you to get that kind of growth unless you have very healthy transactions going. Okay, so if I were to choose between this one and also there are other bigger freehold land plots in D15, I would choose the bigger ones because we know that the transaction volumes will be healthier and there will be price movements going upwards. when there's demand. Okay, yeah. So conclusions here, even though all the different factors that I just mentioned, right? This is a freehold development at 2009 to 3000 per square foot. So if you're looking at the safe entry price, it's still quite reasonable in the sense the price is still quite attractive, because we know that 9-year developments in less desirable location like Bayshore that will be launching at 2000, above 2008 maybe per square foot, 4 stops away, further away from the city. And at the same time, Emerald of Katong Grand Diamond has already hit 2009 per square foot. So in that case, for a freehold property, it's still quite a safe entry for you to enter. Of course, if you talk about capital appreciation and understanding how you want to how to grow your property and making sure that you can get the kind of capital appreciation you want, then a smaller project may not do you that great in the D15 area. Okay, so bigger freehold land has proved to more value in the short run, but there will still be growth in the longer run for you to look out for, because your entry price is safe, right? So overall, as the market goes along and the prices have go up, then you should still see some cushion for profits over there. Okay, so when we know that the price has already been accepted, let's say for Mayor Blue at 3004, almost 3005 per square foot for a sea view unit, you buffer that maybe 200 per square foot for sea view, right? At 3002 per square foot, if you can get something below 3002 per square foot, I think it's still quite reasonable. And at the same time, we know that these prices has already been accepted in the market. And in the D15 area where we're looking about more premium people, I would say people wanting to live in East Coast, I would say that bears lower risk. Okay, so in summary, 2-bed 2-bath, the smallest one for the highest rental yield, because if you look about the 635 square feet versus the 721, right? The 635 square feet one may give you a better rental yield, because you're talking about maybe just a $200 difference between the sizes. The rental yield perspective and the entry price, if you compare it that way, your rental yield for the smaller 2-bed will be higher. Okay, so for own stay, there's limited supply. There's only 2 sets of the 2+ study, right? And 1 set of the 2-bed 2-bath. So in terms of looking at the whole unit, maybe you're only looking at less than 80 units in total, right? So it will do alright as well, because if you talk about new 2-bedrooms in the area, you're only talking about Amber Park and maybe Mayor side, right? So for newer ones, this will do okay as well. Okay, for 3-bedroom compact, I wouldn't say it will be very sought after. The 980 square feet, the wasted space is not good. The entry price for a compact 2-bed over there it may hit about 3 mil, right? So I think for 3 mil, you can get better options elsewhere that are bigger as well and more usable space. Okay, the 3-bedrooms for the ones that are bigger, the premium between the 1216 square feet and the 1238 square feet is very wide. But having said that, because there's private lease for the 1238 square feet, it will also be sought after, because people in D15, if they're buying big and they're buying this kind of quantum, they would like the privacy as well. Okay, so for the 4-bedrooms, the size is attractive and rare at the same time, but still you have to adopt a half stay half investment strategy for this, because coming in at 5.088 mil, wanting to exit at maybe 5.7 mil, right? It will be hard, and at the same time you will probably need the foreign demand, foreigner ABSD to be lifted before you can see actual transactions in this kind of quantum in that area. Okay, so here's the end of my Amber House analysis. If you like what I just shared, please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to know more or you want to know the latest pricing, you can pause this video, WhatsApp me directly by scanning the QR code. If not, if there's any other questions, you can call me directly or ask me, and also follow me on my socials as well, right? So I'll be launching a lot more project analysis videos in the next couple of months, so this will help you kind of understand if you're looking to enter the market in 2025, how do you make the best new launch decision in the year, and also helping you to gain some clarity on what layouts to choose and what's the best choice for you out there. Okay, so here's the end of my video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.